What's the deal, man? It's your boy Rsonist, Heatmakerz in the building. You already know what it is, man. I'm chilling with my homeboy, Mikey T, the movie star, Report Card Radio. You know what it is, man. Dipset in the building. Holla at your boy, Heatmakerz. Crack music.
Could you tell me about when the Heatmakerz actually linked with Cam'ron and Dipset? How was that connection made?
That connection was made through a guy by the name of Renee McLean, who was actually managing Cam at the time. And me and a couple of my partners went to go see Renee because he, at that time he was working with a lot of DJs. And if you had artists, he could get your artist record played on the radio. So you went to go meet with him about that. And then he asked us what we did. We told him we produced. He said he was working with Cam, asked if we had any music. I gave him a CD. And then we get a call back from Cam in like about 4 days after we give him the CD, and out of that CD, out of the 11 records we did on Diplomatic Immunity, 9 of those beats were on the CD.
The working on the Come Home With Me album, that was prior to the Diplomatic Immunity album, right?
Yeah, it was, but we didn't. The funny thing is, there was a guy, I won't even mention his name because I don't even want to give him any type of anything on this interview, but there was a guy who was basically trying to, like I said, we didn't have a lot of connections to artists, so he was working with Cam at the time, and he asked us for beats. We gave it to him, not knowing that he was working with Cam, and he was trying to sell it to Cam under his name. It wasn't until later on that, we had to meet up with lawyers and we got our co-production, or even though we made the beats, because he got them placed at the time, we got our co-production, but we didn't even know Cam. You know what I mean? So we didn't really meet Cam until we met Renee McLean, which was kind of weird because Cam didn't even know we had tracks, or we had tracks on Come Home With Me. He didn't know it was us.
Wow, that's an interesting fact right there, because that third album was actually the Cam'ron album with Dipset and Roc-A-Fella. So, yeah. And, because I was thinking, honestly, that was the album that brought you into doing Diplomatic Immunity.
No, it was. Indirectly. It didn't really, because like I said, Cam didn't know we existed. He heard the name Heatmakerz, but he didn't know what the faces looked like. He didn't know where we were from. He didn't know what the rest of our music sounded like. Because like I said, somebody else was trying to take credit for our work. But, God works in mysterious ways, man. At the end of the day, we ended up right back there. So everything, anything that's meant to happen can't really be stopped.
So Rsonist, I want you to take me into when you found out that you were going to be doing the bulk of the Diplomatic Immunity album.
I never found out. I just, when it came time to put the album out, and I remember me, Jim, I think Cam was there, but it was really Jim who had like a yellow notepad, and he was writing down the songs, and he was writing down who produced what, and we're going through the album, and he was like, who produced this? I was like, okay, Heatmakerz, and before you know it, out of like, if I'm not mistaken, it was 16 records on Diplomatic Immunity, 15 or 16, and we did 11. So when we made that track list, Jim was like, damn, Heatmakerz did the whole album. They're going to make all the money off this album, like joking around. And then I knew, but I kind of knew along the way because I seen how many records we were recording, and I knew that they weren't recording a bunch of records to other producers' beats. So I kind of figured at the end of the day, we were going to be left with a nice amount. But again, back then, it wasn't a matter, I didn't feel like I was getting hype. I just felt almost anxious because I knew I had to do more work. I had to, you know what I mean? Because this was going to bring me more work and I didn't want to miss my opportunity. So my mind was focused on just locking in and making more quality music.
So how was the reaction to the Diplomatic Immunity album?
Out of control. What, you mean when it came out?
Yeah.
Out of control. I didn't understand how big of an album it was until weeks later when I would go places, and I think right around that time, it might have been, I don't know, right around that time, I don't know if I just did Smack or I did something where people actually, I think it was a Source. Matter of fact, I did a Source interview where they put our pictures in the Source. And I remember going somewhere and people like, oh, you the one that did Diplomatic Immunity, right? That shit is crazy. And it just started happening more and more. And I'm like, this shit might be crazier than I thought, because it's kind of like the saying, when you're in the frame, you can't see the picture. You know what I mean? So like, I was in the picture. I couldn't see what was going on outside. I was too busy working. I was too busy being in the studio and listening to new records being made. It wasn't until I stepped outside and heard every car, or like one out of every three cars that was passing, playing something with Diplomats, and it kind of was like, oh, this is for real.
So how did you find out that you were going to be working with Jewels on the From Me to You album?